In this video, I'll be going through my most wanted figures from The Mandalorian in both the Black Series and the Vintage Collection. Hey there Star Wars collectors, and welcome to another Bosk's Bounty video. As mentioned in the intro, this video is all about the insanely good show The Mandalorian and which characters I most want to be made into figures. Now, I will be listing these in the context of the Vintage Collection, but these could quite easily apply to the Black Series, unless of course the character has already been made or is coming soon to that line. Alright, so before we get into it, please don't forget to hit that thumbs up button if you happen to like this video, and if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, and also please comment down below with your most wanted characters, because I'll be interested to know your thoughts. And with all that being said, I'm going to get straight into it with Quill the Ugnaught. So I'm sure there are many people that feel like I do about this character. I don't want to go too overboard, but I really do feel that he is one of the best characters we have seen since the original trilogy. I don't know, there's just something about him that I really do like. At the end of the day, he's just an Ugnaught, but for me, the show just wouldn't be the same without him. As for the figure, I think we need him to be made in both the Black Series and the Vintage Collection. He's going to look so cool with those goggles and everything, and I'm sure the card back that they would give us would be amazing. There's so many good shots that they could use for that figure. They could also give us a blurg too, I'm sure, in the future. But for me, Quill is my most wanted figure from the whole show. Next up we have the Mandalorian himself, but this time in his full Beskar armour with removable helmet, because obviously, spoiler alert, we do see him without his helmet on in one of the episodes. So this one for me is going to be a pretty easy one for Hasbro to do. They pretty much have the majority of the sculpt. Obviously there's a few extra pauldrons and stuff painted silver. It's an easy one for them to do. But as he wears the full armour for pretty much half the show, we do definitely need this figure. He could come with the Beskar jetpack just for good measure. A must-have for anyone's Mandalorian collection, and needed in both the Vintage Collection and the Black Series. Next on my list is the main bad guy, Moff Gideon. So he's played by the guy from Breaking Bad, as I'm sure you are all aware. Now, bad guys is an area where I feel Hasbro have been lacking, especially since the Vintage Collection came back. If you think about it, we're still waiting for Director Krennic, General Hux, Dryden Voss, or even Beckett, who could be considered as a bad guy. So taking all that into consideration, we're missing the bad guys from most of the shows or films that we've had in the last, well, since Disney took over really. We now have a serious bad guy in The Mandalorian, and Hasbro should be going all out to make this figure, in my opinion. He would look so cool in his TIE fighter armour with the cape. I can just picture the head sculpt now. I really feel they could nail that guy. As for the card back, plenty of great shots they could use, and again, I'm sure fans of the Black Series would want this figure as well. Next up is Apollo Creed. Greef Karga. So this guy is in 6 episodes and 100% needs to be made into a figure. There's not really much to this guy from an aesthetic point of view, but he is still one of the main characters and is 100% needed in both lines. So this is why Greef Karga, stroke Apollo Creed, is on my list. Moving swiftly on to some of the fantastic droid designs that we have seen in The Mandalorian. So first up we have Zero from the Jailbreak episode. So this guy was voiced by Richard Iodi. I can never pronounce his name properly, but he's the guy from the IT crowd and various other things. Very cool design of the figure, similar to Forlom or Zuckuss, whichever way round you have them. He's the one with the fly type head on a protocol droid's body. Very cool looking indeed. In the same episode we have the New Republic security droids. These guys look pretty awesome to me, and I'd love to own one in figure form. It's possibly wishful thinking, as they, Hasbro do have a lot of characters that we need in various things, from The Mandalorian, Rise of Skywalker and stuff like that. So I can't see these guys getting made anytime soon, but I do think that they deserve to be made into a figure. I think they're a cool enough design, and I think most collectors would want them. How can we talk about droids without mentioning IG-11? So, of course, we already have this guy in the Black Series, but I think this is a must for the Vintage Collection. He's one of the stars of the show, and at the end of the day, they pretty much have the sculpt already from when they did IG-88 back in the Vintage Saga Collection, I think it was. So I'm pretty certain we'll get this guy sooner rather than later. And yeah, really just hoping for a decent card back. Back to the Mandalorians themselves, and I doubt that I'm alone in wanting the armourer made into a figure. So this female Mandalorian looks very, very cool indeed, with that gold helmet and the sort of fur effect that she has on her shoulders. And as we saw, she's pretty handy too in the episodes. She is in quite a few of the episodes, so she is one of the sort of main characters, I'd say, and definitely needs to be made into a figure for the vintage collection, and I'm sure the fans of the Black series would want her too. Now while we're at it, throw in a couple of the other Mandalorians for good measure. Of course, there's always the chance that Hasbro will get accused of just repainting figures, but I think in this case it's needed. I myself would love an army of Mandos with all slightly different colour schemes, you know, all those different Mandalorians that we saw in that sort of underground cave area that they were all in. Also, obviously, when they did that attack, there was loads of them, all in different colour schemes, and again, pretty easy for Hasbro to do. But as I said, I wouldn't want them to just be accused of repainting or repacking figures with different colour schemes, because in this case it is needed. This brings me swiftly on to the heavy armour Mandalorian that is part of that attack. We have got him in the Black series. He is one of the best and most screen accurate figures I have pretty much ever seen from Hasbro. I've got to say, he is that good, and we definitely need this guy in the vintage collection on that vintage card. Now, how can I do a list of most wanted figures from the Mandalorian without mentioning the child, or baby Yoda as most people seem to call it? So it's already been announced for the Black series, but we will need this character in the vintage collection too. The issue is going to be the size. So to make it worthwhile, I think it needs to come with some accessories, you know, perhaps that levitating cradle pod type thing that he sits in for most of the time, or perhaps with another character. So maybe the Beskar Mandalorian that we want, perhaps he could come with that, or even Quill. I don't know how they're going to do it. I just want them to do it. I don't really care how they do it, as long as they do. Now, before giving you a few honourable mentions, I just did want to talk about Stormtroopers very quickly. I think we definitely need the Incinerator Stormtrooper. Very cool looking trooper, only in the one episode, but again, I think it's an easy one for them to do. Hasbro have already produced the Black Series helmet, so the character is on their minds. I just think, again, that would be a great character for the Black Series and the Vintage Collection. Then I think it would be really cool if they gave us a Stormtrooper with the E-Web cannon, but maybe in the style of the mini rigs that Kenny used to do back in the day. So I could see this being very, very popular with fans of the vintage Kenner line. In those square boxes, it looked fantastic. Now on to the honourable mentions. So they include the Client, big character, but would probably be, has to be said, a bit of a boring action figure. So he is just an honourable mention, but again, he is kind of a character that we would need. Then we obviously have the crew from the Jailbreak episode in, is it Xi'an, I think she's called. Then we've got the Berg character, and then who could forget Mayfeld, the bald-headed guy with the guns on his back. Great character. Just a shame he is in the one episode, which is why he is only an honourable mention. Anyway guys, what do you think? Please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Thank you very much for watching as always, and we will see you on the next one.